The American Pit Bull Terrier. To some people, this dog is the ultimate symbol of loyalty and courage, but to others, it's a source of real fear. This one breed has found itself at the absolute center of a huge, fierce debate, one that has sparked laws that basically put the dog itself on trial. So today, we're going to unpack the controversial policy at the heart of all of it, breed-specific legislation.
This slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? It really captures the whole conflict in a nutshell. On one hand, you've got the historic image, the pit bull as America's dog, a loyal, courageous, family pet. And on the other hand, you have its modern reputation, a public enemy, a dog so dangerous that it needs to be outright banned. So how on earth did we get from one to the other? Well, the answer lies in a very specific kind of law.
And that brings us right to our main topic, breed-specific legislation, or BSL for short. We're talking about laws that really judge a dog not by what it does, but just by what it looks like.
So let's be super clear about this. BSL isn't about targeting a dog that has actually bitten someone or shown aggression. No, it's about targeting an entire group of dogs based on a label, and often it's just based on how they look. It's basically a policy of prejudgment.
And in the real world, this policy has some incredibly severe consequences. We're not talking about small fines here. We're talking about laws that can force a dog to wear a muzzle for its entire life in public or require families to pay for ridiculously expensive special insurance. And in the most extreme cases, it can lead to the confiscation and even the euthanasia of a beloved family pet that has never, ever done a single thing wrong.
And this quote just nails it. It gets to the fundamental flaw of the whole policy. If public safety is the goal, then behavior is what matters, right? But BSL completely sidesteps individual behavior and goes for this broad appearance-based profile instead.
So you gotta ask, right? How did we get to a policy that seems to ignore the single most important factor, a dog's actual conduct? Well, the answer is a story about how public perception can totally change.
Just look at this timeline. It's pretty wild. In the early 20th century, the APBT was a cultural icon, a symbol of loyalty. But then, in the late 20th century, you had this perfect storm of sensational media coverage and the horrifying discovery of illegal dogfighting rings, and it just completely flipped the script. The breed became a symbol of fear, and that fear paved the way for these policies.
And here's the kicker. Here's why that whole fear-based policy just falls flat. Aggression is not some trait that's hardwired into one specific breed. It's way more complex than that. It's shaped by things like training, socialization, the environment a dog is raised in, and maybe most importantly, it's shaped by owner responsibility, or, the lack of it. BSL ignores every single one of these proven factors.
And then there's this other massive, massive problem. The very foundation of BSL, just identifying a pit bull, is incredibly unreliable. Seriously, even animal shelter staff and veterinarians get it wrong all the time, just based on looks. DNA tests have shown that tons of dogs labeled as pit bulls are actually mixed breeds with little to no APBT in them at all. So a dog's life can literally depend on the shape of its head.
This quote just sums it up perfectly. BSL is a reaction to public fear. That's the symptom. But it does absolutely nothing to address the root causes of why a dog might be dangerous, which almost always comes back to irresponsible ownership, neglect, or abuse.
Okay, so we've established that the policy's logic is pretty shaky. But what's the tangible, real-world cost? Let's take a look at how this flawed logic snowballs into a full-blown crisis for animals and the people who love them. Now, this is what happens in communities that have BSL. The local shelters become ground zero for the crisis. You can see it on the chart here. Dogs that just look like pit bulls face a terrible fate. They get surrendered by families who can't legally keep them anymore. They're nearly impossible to adopt out because of the stigma and housing bans. And tragically, many are euthanized simply because of how they look, no matter how sweet or friendly they are. And the damage just ripples outward from there. Responsible owners who've done everything right are punished. Families are literally torn apart. And your taxpayer money, which could be going to public safety education or spay and neuter programs, is instead being spent to enforce a law that doesn't actually make anyone safer.
So after all that, we have to ask ourselves, is punishing thousands of well-behaved dogs and responsible families really achieving the goal of public safety? All the evidence suggests that no, it is not.
So if BSL is the problem, what's the solution? Well, the good news is there's a proven, effective alternative that focuses on the right end of the leash.
This is what a smart breed-neutral policy actually looks like. Instead of banning breeds, it targets reckless owners. It strictly enforces the laws we already have,
like for leashes and keeping dogs contained. And crucially, it holds all owners accountable for their dog's behavior, no matter what that dog looks like. It's fair, it's effective, and it's based on evidence.
Let's just put them side by side. The difference is night and day. BSL punishes the dog for how it looks and lets irresponsible owners completely off the hook. Breed-neutral laws do the exact opposite. They focus on the actual behavior of an individual dog and put the accountability where it belongs, with the owner. And the data shows this approach isn't just fairer, it's way more effective at actually improving public safety.
Understanding the issue is the first step, of course. But for a lot of you, the next question is, okay, so what can I do? And the truth is, individual actions can make a massive difference in this fight.
First and foremost, if you own an APBT or a similar type of dog, you are an ambassador for the breed, whether you like it or not. A well-behaved, well-cared-for dog is the single most powerful tool there is for changing stereotypes and changing minds.
And here are some concrete steps anyone can take. Educate people with facts, not arguments. Advocate for effective, breed-neutral laws by getting in touch with your local officials. Show up to the city council meetings where these laws get discussed. And finally, support the rescue organizations that are on the front lines, the ones working every single day to save these dogs.
You know, when you boil it all down, this isn't just about one breed of dog. It's about whether our laws are guided by science and fairness or by fear and prejudice. It's about protecting animals who are born into a world that's already judging them. These dogs never had a choice in how they look, but we have a choice in how we treat them.